Board of Trustees. And we have a difficult decision to make tonight. What we need to do by the end of today, whenever this meeting ends, is have a budget prepared for us to vote on next Tuesday. So I think a lot of issues are going to come up, but I think we need to keep in mind that what we really need to do by the end of this meeting is have a budget and ready to vote on for next week. So what I'd like to do is go through, I know we have Finance Committee meeting minutes and we have a draft budget, but I want to start by going over the 2017 budget and then the 2018 budget, because we asked at the last meeting for new numbers and we've got some, and including the audit numbers. So Mary, if you wouldn't mind just kind of running through that for everybody so we kind of have a better understanding of
2017 and 2018.
Yes.
Okay.
And please, that changes from last time, highlight those.
Okay. If you refer to the page in your packet with all the budget, all the various columns on it, the yellow and the green page. Okay, the estimate for 2017, the first column, that is the estimate that was presented to you in the last board meeting of the estimate of 2017. And in that estimate, there was an estimate that the revenue would be $8,876,000 and that the fund balance usage would be $49,416. So that was presented. We went through all those, all the options within that estimate at the last meeting. The second column, the actual, it says post-audit, that is the actual 2017 as audited by the auditors. And one of the big changes in that you'll see is when you come down to the fourth line, future operations income. And it's $285,446. And if you look at the last page of this packet, there's a detailed explanation from the auditors why they made a journal entry in the amount of $243,342, but that we had already had $42,104 booked. So it comes out that that future operations income, that's to try to true up the taxes which are collected in advance. Now, once again, the library is on a fiscal year ending on 12/31, and the school district is on a school year ending on 6/30. So the library, the taxes which were collected in 2017 for 2018 were $8,632,467. That's on the last page. If you take that number and you divide it in half by 2, it comes out to be $4,316,234. What they had a balance on our balance sheet, which was the first half of 2017, that $4,257,210. So you add those two numbers, you get $8,573,444. Our balance on our books had been $8,330,102. So the auditors made this entry, which shows as pure revenue and pure profit. So it goes up to revenue. There's no cost against that number. So that was a major change since our last meeting. And when you go through that, that had happened. And in the second column again, all the actuals are posted exactly as they came in. Most of the numbers are extremely close to the prior estimates. The biggest one obviously was that entry. So the revenue came in and it's $9,153,000 versus the prior estimate, which was $8,076,000. And you'll see that the payroll cost came in at $5,117,000 versus, it's 10,000 under what the estimate had been. The occupancy costs came in under, they came in at $715,000 versus an estimate of $767,000. Books came in slightly under, they came in at books and materials at $632,000 versus an estimate of $667,000. And administrative came in at $400,000 versus an estimate of $425,000. And IT came over, they spent $350,000 versus an estimate of $287,000. So for the year in 2017, the major portion being that journal entry on the revenue, there is a net income now of $302,000 versus the original estimate, which was a usage of $49,000. So what does that mean in terms of fund balance when you come down to the bottom? The fund balance, the beginning fund balance was $3,927,000. You add $302,172. So the ending fund balance as of the end of 2017 is $4,230,106. That's the very last number in the second column. So to start the year with that, the next column, the current estimate of 2018. What I had met with Scott, we sharpened our pencils on the 2018 estimate. Many of the numbers in the 2018 estimate now reflect exactly what had happened in 2017. So for numbers in terms of revenue and costs, especially revenue, we parlayed in what happened in 2017. The one thing that you'll notice in 2018, that first future operations income, right now, that number in this particular model is 0 because what is reflected in the 2019 budget as put forth from the Finance Committee is that there would be no tax increase in 2019. If the board decides to go for a tax increase, then we have to put money into that budget line item. But right now, for this model, nothing is, there's no tax increase assumed. The other changes here are, we had more rent income in 2018, and that's to do with both the ACAP being on the third floor as well as the bike share within the model. In terms of the 2018 estimate, in terms of the salaries, again, we did a bottoms-up model of everybody who is currently employed. The one number that has changed in this forecast is the health insurance, because we have received 1 month's bill on our new health care. The one thing I wanted to just, in terms of health care, we always know what we're paying for health care. The difficult thing to model is how much of the deductible our employees will use. So we used the same run rate that we had last year. So this is coming in lower than the prior forecast. In terms of the occupancy cost, we did put up maintenance, repairs, supplies up toward the 2017 rate, so that went up to $365,000. So that is more in line with what we had spent that whole category, occupancy cost, is more in line in the 2018 estimate versus the 2017 actual. And in terms of the materials and services, the forecast is what is in the budget, so that normally we do spend all the money that we put aside for materials. So that money is all in the forecast. And in terms of the category of administrative and miscellaneous, the 2018 estimate is very similar to the 2017 actual. And the information technology categories are all going toward what we had budgeted, so that's what's in that category. So that being said, in that third column, now it looks like our revenue would be around $9.2 million, and we would use 44,000 of fund balance. So that's much better than the budget. The next column, the 2018 budget, that was the budget that was done last January, and the budget that has been voted by the voters, and these are all the numbers in the budgeted columns. Again, you'll see that the salaries are coming in a little bit lower, and healthcare, again, a little bit lower than the budget. Most of the other categories are very close, but we had budgeted to use $288,000 in fund balance in 2018, and right now, with everything that we know, it looks like we're going to use 44,000.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any questions before I ask mine?
Yeah, I have I just don't quite get this.
How to do this?
So I get that that's the half of the total taxes collected is 44.3 million,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
But then what is this
The other,
balance of deferred income?
that was the, when you look at the budget of the, for the period of 1/1 through 6/30/17, that would have been half of the 2017 budget. So that's
Right.
what that is. But the big thing for the auditor's adjustment that we all need to keep in mind is the auditors did not make this adjustment last year. So it's like a 2-year adjustment, meaning that they did not put any of this money collected in advance to our income statement last year. So it's going really back to 2016. That's what this is.
Because they don't know
What's
going to be collected.
They do know, because we have the budget. So it's just like this year. Like when we put the budget out on the website, we do put the 2017 budget and the 2018, and for next year, once we go for the 2019 budget, we will put the 2018 and the 2019 budget out when we go for a vote and we have the budget all set. But that entry, the journal entry, the difference is them truing up to where it should be, and they did not book that last year. So this thing is truing up exactly where it should be. There have been, it's matching it's really half of 2017 and half of 2018. That's what that is.
So just to remind everybody at the table, we collect our money school year versus annual. School years where at school budgets collect their money or start their budget in June? July. Sorry.
July 1st.
So they go July 1st to June. How we do our budget is January to December. However, the ways the school collects our money, they're doing it on their schedule. So the auditors didn't catch this last time, past auditors didn't catch it. but it is the right way to do it, which is if you collect that money. So now when we look at our budgets, the reality of it is
Half and half.
it's half and half.
Right, and what I
And
said
we're
to,
getting a little bit of extra
Okay,
money
this
than we
time,
budgeted.
this time.
Yeah.
Anytime we do an increase.
well, yeah, but this is 2 years worth, right?
Okay,
And,
all right,
and,
I get that now.
okay,
All right, that was the,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Mary, can you speak to the other, that there's a component that has to do with the bond refinancing?
Well,
as
well, meaning that when we did the 2016 budget, we had the bond in there, and remember that with the bond, we basically, the old bond payment was $200,000 higher, but when we went for the increase in 2018, we went on the, we did the increase on the total, not on the operations only. To the board, especially those of you who are new, the beauty of the way, even though it doesn't match the years, is it's just like your checking account at home. We get all the money in third to fourth quarter of the prior year, which we put into the bank account for the future year, so we don't have to ever borrow. So right now, like when I'm paying all the bills for the library, I look at the bank accounts and I have to put money, obviously, to cover the payroll or cover all the checks. So we have all that money. If we matched what the school did, then that would mean if we closed our year at June, that would mean we'd have to, in that 1 year, we'd have to pay for 2 audits, because they'd have to audit you through December, and then they'd have to audit you again in June. And then we wouldn't get the money for that new year until after the year started. So that's how that happened. So this was a surprise.
So just to recap again, because I think it is a little confusing. So the budget that we pass and that voters pass is for for the school district's fiscal year, which runs from July to June. Our fiscal year runs from January to December.
Correct.
So we're collecting half of our increase early, and now the auditors are saying we need to book it in that year where it's collected.
Yes. And so the lesson, obviously, that I know is that if you decide to have a tax increase, then I need to modify the budget, and I need to take half of that and put that into a future income, and then tell you, because we would use then less fund balance.
So but that doesn't explain the total difference in future operations income there. As you said, the bond refinance, which we did at the end of
Yeah,
2016, saved us $200,000 or so
Right.
in 2018, and
Right,
that was also
right,
not counted
right,
for.
right.
So that's now,
Right, this is really 2 years' worth, because they didn't make an entry last year.
okay.
Okay.
All right,
I'm sorry.
are we on the same page? And if we're not, let's make sure we all are.
Just one more, just making sure I understand what I'm seeing. Basically, the 2018s are projections based on what we do, as are the 2019s. So I'm seeing, like, if we do this. So I just.
20,
Okay,
what's
go
your
ahead.
question?
So, like, the two different numbers for 2018 versus 2019, and I realize this should be very
Okay,
clear.
well,
but I'm
the
learning.
2018, the current estimate budget is with everything that has, any new piece of information that has happened within the in terms of revenue or cost, has been laid into that, so that is an estimate. The budget was the budget that was passed, the budget doesn't change, that was passed a year ago.
Mhm.
So that's what that is.
And then the 2019s are.
So we haven't gotten to
assuming-
the 2019
Okay.
yet.
No, we haven't.
Yeah,
Let's
like-
make sure we're,
Quiet,
yeah,
yeah.
so I think, so to me, it's 2017 is fairly clear. Is
Yeah.
everybody, all the trustees, are you clear on what's going on there? Okay, so 2018, we've got the budget, and we've got a new estimate, which is different than the estimate we got in February.
Yeah.
Mary explained the differences. Does anybody have any questions about that one? That
Which
part?
one?
28, the new 2018 estimate.
It's very small, sorry.
So I have one,
Okay.
which is when we, the trustees pass the budget, and the voters pass the budget, we predicted having 6 new positions in our budget, and I couldn't remember, I knew there were more positions, I couldn't remember how many.
Yep,
We figured it out, so there's
Yep.
6.
yep.
Are those new positions above and beyond what is currently on staff?
Well-
Are they included in that,
In the
in
estimate.
the estimate? Yes.
The librarian twos are, so that's the forecast of people changing from librarian 1 to librarian 2. But the 2, adding 2 net new maintenance people are not.
So that's
So
4,
that,
so there were,
those were the positions that were in there. The librarian twos were just basically promotions, if you will, that we'd have current librarian 1, you know, we'd have a domino effect of people going from librarian 1 to librarian 2. So those are still in this, but adding net new people are not.
so, okay.
We also have the case manager.
Oh, yes, and we have the social worker in there, and that is still in the estimate.
Because we did,
Yes.
and I know things changed, but
Yes.
what we had approved
Yes.
was 2 L2s, right? I'm looking for the piece of paper that I wish I could find. I can never
2
seem to find it.
full-time librarians, 1 part-time librarian, 2 full-time clerks, and a social worker.
Yeah, the social worker is in this, yes.
Okay, so there were some shifts around with the existing budget, and the social worker was added, but the other positions were not. So that's one of the reasons why the estimate is lower
Yep,
than the budget.
right. And when we did the 2018 budget, we did not have the new contract in place. But
Right.
this forecast does have the current salaries of people having gotten their raises, and it also accounts for them getting what they're getting this year.
Does anybody have any questions about that? Or anything else about the 2018 budget before we move on?
Can I just add to the 2017 and 2018 budget? There's fluctuation to what we're spending in payroll, because right now we have 7 open positions. Those positions aren't open because we want them to be. Those positions are open because of because of city civil service. It took us 3 months? 3 months I finally signed off on 4 clerks? 5 clerks. Part-time, 5 part-time clerks. Finally signed off on them today, and so they're replacing people who left the organization in December. So there's definitely going to be fluctuation in that part of the budget line, which is our largest part of the budget line, because we can't pay people if they're not working, but we can't hire people unless civil service provides us the list to hire.
I have a question. Why weren't the positions included in the updated estimate?
The social worker is included in the
Mm-hmm.
positions. The librarian twos are included in the estimate. The other ones, it's just, I used everybody that we currently have on payroll.
What were the other ones, Allison? Sorry.
So you said you filled the 2 full-time librarians?
No,
No.
we moved 2 library assistants into full librarian positions.
There.
Okay.
So those positions were filled.
You had a part-time librarian, 2 full-time clerks, and a social worker.
So the
Full-time clerks we did last year.
first full-time clerks we did last year.
So they are there.
So then the part-time librarian and the social worker are not in there.
The social worker's in the estimate, but not a
they're
part-time librarian.
Not a part-time librarian. We're using the money from the part-time librarian to pay for the L2, having an L2 in every branch.
So the only one, just to recap, not in the estimate is the part-time librarian. Okay.
We had to make an adjustment due to the contract, how much money there was, and really where we saw a change in demand.
And when we say the social worker, is in the budget right now. We're in March right now, so is that position budgeted for the full year, even
It
though
is
they could?
budgeted for the full year.
So we're already 2 months in, so there's going to be some cost savings
There will
even
be
if we
some
hire
cost savings,
tomorrow?
yes.
Okay.
And that's a full-time position, so I always ask people to think about what take what we're willing to pay that person, cut it in half, and then add that half on, because typically that's what it costs for us to provide benefits. So a $50,000 position is really a $75,000 position.
Right, and the estimate that we did last year accounted for all those things. So it accounted for a $286,000 increase in salary, benefits, and retirement to account for the full cost of those people. And so now I'm confused again. So the clerks were already hired. The new clerks on top of what we already have are already
Yes.
hired. There's not new L1 positions. The people were promoted from LA to L1.
Yes.
So there's not new bodies.
No, so right now, we've got those two LA positions. Both were part-time. So there's two part-time LA positions that right now we're looking to see if we need to backfill them based on workflow.
Are those provided for in the estimate?
In terms of the estimate, we have the actual payroll. So anybody who's on
Got it.
the payroll at this point in time, and the social worker, and the L2s.
Okay, so the 2 part-time LAs that just bumped up are not in the estimate because they're open positions now?
Right.
Thank you.
Well, so the estimate doesn't include open positions?
No, it does.
Okay.
It does, but it was what, it's difficult, quite honestly, especially, for instance, like in terms of the senior clerks. They were hired last year, even though they were in this budget, so they're already filled.
Right.
And then the other open ones, it's just at that point in time. And we always have attrition, turnover, whatever you want to use it, that sometimes some positions are open.
Yeah, right,
Yeah.
no, I understand that
Right.
that happens, and there's often lags that
Yeah.
happens in all
Yeah.
Organizations. But what I'm trying to ask, one of your other trustees asking is, when the estimate for the salaries and the rest of the associated personnel costs are made, is it based on just who's on the payroll that day? Does it
Oh, no,
include
no.
vacancies and
And
then
vacancy, yeah.
those one and a
Right.
half other positions that we
Right,
talked about?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And also the increase that's outlined in the contract.
Right, of
Right.
course, yeah. Okay.
And that's changed drastically compared to how we once did it. It used to be everybody got their increase January 1st and then in November. Now it's something that you'll see happen over the year
Okay.
because it happens now on anniversary date.
Any other questions about that? Where we are? Okay. Okay. So with that context, let's talk about the 2019 budget that Finance Committee proposed.
Okay. So, we met on February 26th, and we talked quite a bit about what should and shouldn't be used in the budget. And the first thing that we talked about was the fact that we wanted a good estimate of how much we were going to spend on the capital projects. So that is on the sheet of capital projects. Scott with his team met, and these were the most important projects to do right now, which were the Delaware roof, the Howe roof and the front work, and then some other projects, because there's always some other projects. So we felt more comfortable, instead of saying we're going to use 20%, that we would give an actual estimate of $100,000. Are there questions about that?
The facilities committee supported that.
Awesome. Okay. Then we are really discussing about the tax increase. Should we go out for a tax increase or should we not? And there was a couple of different things that came up. One is the uncertainty of North Albany, because we don't know what's going to happen with North Albany. Are we going to keep it open? Is it going to close? What message would be sending out if we're talking about closing a branch and then asking for more money? We also talked about if the school board is proposing a tax increase and that how that would reflect upon us. And again, then we talked about North Albany. What's the plan going forward with North Albany? Is the branch going to stay open? Should we be paying rent? What does that area need? Does it need a building, or does it need programming? Does it need books being provided via a different way? So what came forward with our committee was a motion for a tax levy of $8,633,966, which would be a 0% increase, utilizing $358,493 of the fund balance. But the budget would take out the rent of North Albany and reduce the book and IT services at this location, but continue to have the programming budget for that service area.
Where is that located? Is it in the programming line?
The programming
The
line
programming
has
line did
increased.
not,
Yeah.
yeah.
But how is that, like, if we stop paying rent, how is that possible?
Well, I think in essence, we would say that we would still be serving the area, but we would not be having a building.
So we're talking a bookmobile?
I'm sorry. You said not having a building?
Not having a space. We're not paying the rent at the Y.
So you mean closing North Albany? Is that
Closing,
what you're saying?
closing the location.
But continuing to maintain services in the neighborhood.
I believe that's. All right, I'm sure there's lots of questions.
So that is,
Please,
let me just be clear, is that the recommendation from the finance committee? 0 and close North Albany? That's your recommendation? That seems
How does
really
that-
strange to me.
How's that
How did we get
opening or
there?
closing the North Albany
How did we
Library
get
comes
there
the
from
Facilities Committee?
last meeting?
Yeah, I don't understand that either.
We were not 0 and we were not closing North Albany at the last meeting. We had lots of options, but how'd that go down? That's kind of curious.
Yeah, I'm not understanding that either.
Well, I think that we left this meeting and we felt that the finance committee needed to meet again about what to do. We talked very long about whether or not to go out for an increase or not. And we decided that we shouldn't go out for an increase. And I think that we talked about what are we to do, what is going to happen in the future about North Albany, and that a decision is going to need to be made sooner or later. And by us bringing it forward this way, a discussion has to be had about it, because it's something that's been talked about on again, and it just keeps circling.
I agree that a decision has to be made about some things, but in regards to North Albany, we still don't have the information in regards to the whole project. And I spoke to Councilman Kimbrough yesterday. We still don't know what the regs are in regards to the agreement that was made with that library. So I don't feel that saying in regards to the budget, the 0 increase, and we close North Albany, we don't even know if we can do that. You don't even have all the information on the table. So supposedly the lawyer's looking into it at Albany Housing Authority and all these other things are happening, but that needs to be brought to the table and transparent before you attempt to say, oh, we're gonna close North Albany. And I don't understand how that's the Facilities Committee's decision.
Well, it's just a recommendation.
I'm just saying.
Finance, let's be clear.
I'm sorry, finance, I'm sorry.
Just so that it's out there, our council actually reached out to Albany Housing Authority's council today and requested all of the agreement.
So I just also want to say, I want to make sure that everybody, all the trustees have a chance to be heard. And so I'm gonna try to really focus on what you guys are doing here. So Brenda, are you finished with your
Yes.
point? Okay, Matthew.
I'm surprised by that, but I'm also wondering, we've charged Brenda with getting a committee together. And
Yes.
how is that committee going to be seen and workable if this
Right, and I,
sword of Damocles is hanging over the head of the branch?
and that's one of the things that we had in discussion down at Common Council yesterday, when I speak to Kelly Kimbrough in regards to the advisory committee. And as I've been saying all along, knowing what the regs are and what we can and can't do in North Albany needs to be brought forth and transparent before you bring an advisory committee together so they know exactly what their focus is. Supposing you can't close it, that makes your focus a little bit different. And the folks who want to serve and want to help and want to be involved also want to know that information before they take time out to come together and blindly try to figure out what to do when they don't even know what is really on the table.
So, Jenna, other finance committee, other members of finance committee, do you want to add to the conversation about some of the decisions that you?
I'd like to hear what everybody else has.
Okay.
Well, actually, I was gonna ask you, as someone who was asking for a 5% increase at our last meeting, but actually put the motion forth for the 0%, how you arrived there. Because I'm just curious what the conversation was.
Sure. So there didn't seem to be much of, a general agreement or appetite to go out for that kind of increase. And my concern being the future financial health of the organization, using that much of the fund balance became a concern for me. So I thought having this discussion with both of these things together was something that the board should consider. If we're going to go out for piecemeal or not go out at all, then we absolutely have to start reducing expenditures. It's a binary thing for me. So that's how I got from there to here.
Okay. Would other members of the finance committee like to comment similarly? I'd just love to kind of hear how you got to, I'm not making value judgments there.
I think this conversation regarding North Albany has circled round and round.
Yeah.
And I don't think anybody here wants to close the branch. But I know that we've been looking for this information for approximately a year now.
Yes.
And I'm grateful that we're asking people for the information. I'm just wondering at what point is it going to come up, or is it ever going to come to fruition? Because it seems like nobody can find this information. And we're trying to plan a budget almost a year in the future, and it's very hard to plan that budget not knowing and still having these same questions that we had a year ago planning this budget. And a year ago, we had the same discussion about having to reduce our footprint, having too many branches and not enough staffing to have all these branches.
And the closeness of North Albany to Manhattan.
And so, for me, it came down to, I attended both the October and the November forum at North Albany, and I had an opportunity to speak with some community members after both forums, and to hear what people said during the forums as well. And some of the residents were saying that they came out last year and voted for the tax increase, and then they heard about the question over North Albany, and they said, even though we have public meetings and the issue, this came up, I believe, last March, so prior to the vote, that they were not aware that it was an issue. So they kind of felt, we voted for this tax increase and now we're hearing about it. So I'm I'm concerned that if we do write the rent into the 2019 budget, it would be us signaling to the public that we've made a decision and that we're keeping it open, and then I feel that it takes our vote away on the issue. And while I see the opposite as well, taking it out says we're closing it, I wish there was some middle ground that would let us work it out. I'm just concerned whether we put it in the budget or take it out, it's us telling and signaling to the public that we've made a decision. So again, for me, the concern is if we put that in, I feel like our hands are tied and we don't have a vote on the matter.
And then just one last question, which is for Scott and Melanie, which is there feasibility of doing this, having a presence in that community without a building like a bookmobile or something?
Don't necessarily know about a bookmobile because that's an
Sorry,
additional
that was
cost.
just like a random idea. No, but like if there's a
definitely-
feasibility of doing programming.
Definitely. I know the librarian right now at our North Albany location has been doing essentially outreach with the school and the community to begin with. So it would just be getting the okay with the why to continue that relationship, which I don't.
The majority, and Rebecca can probably speak to this, the majority of the programming that goes on there is agency. So in other words, the story time is the Head Start group. It's not, it's not people coming from. Yeah, it doesn't draw from the neighborhood. The after-school programs that are popular there are really the kids from the schools walking over and participating in that program.
Go to the school instead.
Yes. The book, the adult, there's not a ton of adult programming there. The book discussion groups can happen, you don't need a library for a book discussion group, and they can be facilitated that way. And to be honest, that's the direction I think most libraries are going, but if you look at our strategic plan, that is a big part of it. So yes, and there's conversations with, one thing that I see when I talk to people, I hear a lot about having a space for the youth to go, which I'm in total agreement. I think North Albany needs a rec center. That's what I really think it needs.
Yeah.
But that's not within our power, but it's definitely something I've brought to the Recreation Commissioner's table multiple times.
So I just want to remind everybody, under your notes for sure, just want to remind everybody that the goal today is we need to figure out what the budget is going to be for next week. And just, we can't also decide tonight what to do with North Albany, so just keep that in mind in the big picture. Go ahead, Brittany.
I just have another comment too. On the Hope 6 project, a year ago, we weren't talking about that because I didn't even know about the Hope 6 project, so it hasn't been a year. And speaking with Councilman Kimbrough yesterday, he said they found documentation. You said you spoke to them yesterday because they have the Hope 6 documents?
I spoke with Stephen so before the last board meeting, Stephen said that they thought they had all the information, but his lawyer, the Albany Housing Authority's lawyer is only part-time, and he was on vacation. So he was back from vacation and wanted to look at the documentation. When I spoke to Steve, I want to say it was Monday, but I'm a little off from the snow day. He said that they still want to look at the information, that David from the YMCA wants to look at the information with his lawyer as well.
But they haven't.
But they haven't yet. We haven't met yet. And then I spoke with them, I spoke with our lawyer today and said, listen, if they're bringing their lawyer, the YMCA is bringing their lawyer, then we need to bring our lawyer as well. So Bob today sent a request over to their lawyer for the full paperwork. And he says if we don't get a response, then we'll foil it. Darren Scott, who's no longer with the Housing Authority, and I spoke about a year and a half ago about this, and I requested this information, and he said he did not know where it was. So I would say it was a year and a half ago when we first requested this information. Because just to remind everybody, this whole discussion came from the fact that the YMCA wanted to move us out of that space into another space in the building. All those spaces were looked at by the facilities committee at that time, and everybody agreed none of those spaces would work for us.
But they did share that they had it, right? They just squared us away.
Yeah, so, I think one thing that's been lost in this conversation that I want on record is this was all started almost 2 years ago, and it was started by the YMCA. So that's just something that I think needs to be out there.
So by this conversation, you mean the closing all in North Albany Y conversation, not the conversation about the 2019.
You are correct. You are correct in keeping us on track.
So what I'm hearing is that, you know, proposed closing North Albany Y, there is some concern about that from trustees. Andy, you haven't said anything yet. Do you want to ask questions or provide?
Well, I mean, I understand Sarah's reasoning, and you know, she's, but at the same time, you know, we have tried to build into our budget, our budgeting over the year, some reconciliation processes at the beginning of the year and at the end. We have a policy to do that. So, I have an initial feeling that that I wouldn't be in favor of pulling money out in regard to North Albany funding for the 2019 budget until, you know, the community conversations continue. So that's my.
Alyssa, and so just so you know, I want to keep asking questions. I have questions that are about other things, not the Albany Y, and so I hope you all do too, but let's keep going. I mean, the North Albany. Go ahead.
Well, I honestly believe that it would be a huge disservice just to close the North Albany branch with no consideration other than $17,000 being used of increased programming money. Is that the difference there? No. I don't know, increased programming money. If we were to close North Albany, that would be a very calculated, carefully planned effort to replace services appropriately. And if you're talking about the North Albany, according to these calculations, we'd be saving $70,000. It's going to cost us at least double that to get something else going so that we actually can provide those services. So whether that's any kind of outreach, our outreach is not prepared to deal with the kind of outreach to replace a branch. We don't have the vehicle, we don't have the infrastructure right yet. Can we build up to it? Yes. So in any year that we make a change, we're probably going to expend more towards that effort if we are committed to maintain the level of support to the existing patrons there. So, if you want to take it out of rent and put it in North Albany service as a category, perhaps that makes it a better thing to talk about. But I think we'd be creating a firestorm that we would take years to undo. We have done a very good job of responding to this community, and that's just doesn't make sense. Now, if you're, strategically pushing the issue, okay, granted, but we don't have the information. It's not prudent to do it. So I would be strongly against not including the figures in for North Albany for the 2019, and we work with it if something changes. And I not only would I be against it, I would actively lobby all of you to change your votes, because you've done an incredible job of maintaining the integrity of this organization, and that would be just a misstep that it would be difficult to recover from.
I absolutely agree with you. Part of what we talked about, part of the consideration was with that money, especially if we're not going out for a budget increase or a de minimis increase, and using nearly $500,000 of the fund balance for recurring costs, which is wildly, inappropriate isn't the right word, but another one doesn't really come to mind. Part of the consideration was putting that money back into the budget would potentially allow us to enhance services in other locations. So, I mean, in a perfect world, we go out for an adequate increase that would allow us to keep North Albany open and allow us to have money to enhance services in all of the locations while using less of the fund balance, if any at all. But if we're not going to do that, simply annually chipping away at the fund balance for recurring costs with no plan for service enhancement because one can't be developed outside of adequate funding. If I can give a little more context to my thinking coming out of the committee.
So Mike, the thing is, we haven't been chipping away at our fund balance. We've been growing it. In the past 2 years, we've added more than $500,000 to the fund balance.
In the past 2 years.
Yeah.
Over the past decade, 6 years, how much of the fund balance have we used?
I don't have, 1 year we used $1 million.
But that was largely capital expenditures.
Yes, it was.
not
Yes, it was.
operating.
It's still a reduced fund balance, right?
And this past year, we outperformed the budget by close to $600,000.
We what?
We outperformed the actual end of the year balance sheet. We outperformed what we predicted in March 2016 by almost $600,000.
I don't think it's good budgeting practice, in my opinion, for me, to cross my fingers and hope that the numbers turn out better than we predicted. You know?
So we could try to deal with this fund balance in terms of restricted fund balance for increased capital costs. You know, the facilities committee isn't done with our work yet, and we haven't finished all of the buildings, and, you know, I look at these costs that we have in here, and they're not increased, and we're hearing that we have to replace furniture, and, you know,
One thing that's good about that is the way the finance committee is now handling the capital budget and the capital line is much different than we did in the past, and it's basically pulling it out of the operational budget, which is the right way to do it. So,
except these figures here are for just maintenance,
maintenance,
right?
yes, and contracts.
So what we were saying in the finance committee regarding the facilities plan, because we know we don't have the whole thing in front of us right now, but that it's being worked on. We asked for the large ticket items over the next 5 years, and we were presented with at least 1 or 2 big projects over the course of the next 5 years. What you have in your packet tonight is for 2019.
Right.
And we did add in some additional money for some things that come up. Again, the 100,000 prediction is much lower than the 520,000. But I forgot where I was going with this. I guess just in the vein of how we came up with the 0%, or how I came to my vote for the 0% tax increase, was I feel we do have a healthy fund balance right now, and seeing the large ticket items over the next 5 years, and especially the items that need to be done in 2019, I feel that we have enough of a cushion to hit the pause button this year, not ask for a tax increase until we get the 5-year financial plan from the facilities committee, and we can see those numbers, plug them into our 5-year forecast, and then we can kind of plan accordingly thereafter. I think also what we discussed is potentially bifurcating the fund and having part of it for capital projects and facilities, and then kind of what Scott mentioned at our last meeting, maybe a 10% emergency fund for the operating budget. So right now, with the $4.2 million in there, about 900,000 or 1 million would be an emergency fund for our operating budget in case we went over, and the remaining 3.2 would be our 5-year capital fund. But since we're only projecting $100,000 next year, I don't see us going through 3 million over the course of the next 5 years unless something drastically changes from the projections and estimates that we saw.
You know, I think we also have to think over the long haul, what a 2% cap means. I think we've never been faced with this kind of outlook where we can't grow at a pace that works for the organization. We can't, we're almost at $1 million for health insurance. $1 million. I mean, we don't have control over this stuff. I guess the only thing we have is up to a 2%. We can ask for more, but you know, it's hard in this climate to do that. But I think we're going to need it. Or we start staffing, putting in staffing levels that show our commitment to staffing adequately and taking a risk on the fund balance, knowing that at some other point, if we need that fund balance for something else, or that's where we have some flexibility.
So staffing is a good question that I have too. So in 2019, it's adding a social worker and other position according to this last column here. But we know, we've discussed already, that in 2018, we're already adding a social worker position. So was the 2019 budget based on the 2018 estimate and then increased with those 2 additional positions?
It's not 2 social workers, it's 1.
Right.
Yeah.
So there are 2 additional.
But it is based on the 2018 estimate, yes, because with the 2018 estimate, starts you off for 2019.
So, right, great.
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that.
Right.
So are there 2 additional positions in 2019?
No.
No,
There are
Just
no
reflect-
additional.
no, I
No
just
addition.
reflected that the social worker's still in there.
Yeah, so it doesn't reflect any new positions, 2019, is that correct?
That's,
But the social worker's
That's what
not
it
on
says.
staff yet, that's all.
All right.
so were the 2019 numbers revised then, since last time?
In terms of, yes, the 2019, no, that was the same one, but the 2018 and the 2019, the 2018 estimate and the 2019 were all a bottoms up, but by individual, so the salary numbers were not adjusted from the last time because that was done person by person.
Right, I understand,
Yeah.
but then
No,
we
they
had
weren't
these-
revised since the last
But
time.
we had additional positions that were added, and we talked about them when we talked about the 2018 budget. So the
That
that's
was
in
in the budget,
2018.
not in the
right,
estimate.
but the 2019 budget, when we talked about it last month, what I heard was we're adding another position, perhaps 2, it says social worker and 1 other. So
The social worker,
I understand that the social worker is already in there,
okay,
so.
but then they did just, Scott called it $25,000 for all other. It wasn't a position. In the 2019, it was a social worker's salary plus but that is in the 2018 estimate. So
So they're now, even though we said there was a new position last time, there's no new positions in this.
well, it's in the 2018 and in the 2019. It's just one position. That social worker position, it's an unfilled social worker, but that person is in both 2018 estimate and 2019 budget.
Are you saying that at the last meeting, we asked for another staff person to be added to the 2019 budget?
My understanding in the 2019 budget was that there was an additional person added. I don't think there's 2 social workers. But there's an additional person added in that budget, but now we
I don't
understand.
recall that.
You don't, okay, so then why was the social worker called out?
Only because it's unfilled. Only because it's unfilled. That's all.
Okay.
Okay, that's why.
So there's no new
Yeah, I would-
positions in
It-
2019?
Well, it's still not filled, so it might, okay, that's all.
I don't consider it
Okay.
unfilled
And
vacancy.
then the only other piece, just so you're aware, for 2019 was that the 25,000, so that if somebody came into the organization and if Scott needed money to put somebody at a higher salary, he had extra money. That was all that's in there.
Okay,
Okay.
thanks. And just to be clear, like, I understand, I think that I would consider a vacant position that exists to be a position that would be included in the budget. I wouldn't consider that a new position if it's a vacant, like a spot,
Okay.
you know,
Well,
aside.
I can remove that comment.
I'm just wondering if we added one, which is my understanding. Did anyone else have that understanding from the last meeting, that we were adding a new position?
I will say, as a new board member and a member of the finance committee, I didn't realize that the 2018 budget last year had a social worker added. When I voted, I thought it was a new position.
Okay.
I didn't realize we already had a social worker in the 18 budget.
Again, it's an open position, we've never had one, so that's all it is, okay? But I get what you're saying.
I have a question about the rent income. ACAP at half a year, are you expecting them to move on in 19?
No, but whenever you do an estimate, you always factor in what the lease is. So the lease ends in 2019.
Oh,
I don't see cycle here staying that long, but I do see ACAP staying. Or I hope ACAP stays.
Okay.
When you mentioned a social worker position, you said that it's vacant, right? Vacant because,
We didn't hire based on expectations that the budget was being redlined last year. So we are now actively going forward with it.
so you now posted a job or?
We have to go to Albany Civil Service, give them a job spec, get them to approve the job spec, and then go through the process of hiring.
The one comment that was made in regards to North Albany again was, if, oh, we close it, we get a social worker, but it's already budgeted in there, so. I'm
Yeah,
surprised.
no.
Okay, that's good to know.
That position's there, that position's gonna happen. It was just more of my mistake of thinking the budget was gonna go over and not hiring somebody thinking that that budget line was redlined.
Okay, any other comments right now before I pivot a little? Okay, so the issues on the table. In the 2019 budget, closing North Albany at a savings of, what is it,
$70,400.
$70,400. 2, 0% tax increase, which is predicted to use a fund balance of 300, and wait, which one is it?
358.
358,493. Is that it? Are those the only two things we need to decide? Is there any other? I thought I was gonna be listing, and then I realized there's only two. Is that it? Anyone?
I think so.
Okay. Okay, so let's, I'm not sure how to do this. So we could do a straw poll to ask on those two things. Why don't we do that, and then we can talk about options. All right, so just given everything we just talked about, who, and based on what everyone put forward, and me who didn't say very much, and I'm happy to say more. Who would support keeping North Albany out of the 2019 budget at this point? The way that's proposed by the Finance Committee.
If I may, I don't think you can unlink those two things. We passed a budget that was recommended to this committee as presented. A 0% increase based on North Albany being, these things were interdependent in the budget we recommended to the committee. I think the committee has to reject the budget that the finance committee recommended or adopt it.
Yeah, because it goes in as a motion, right?
There is a motion on the table.
Okay, there's a motion on the table. We'll do it. Before we do that, okay, well, there's a motion on the table. So does anyone want to second that? So that would be, we would like to have people who are not on the finance committee second that. Will anybody second that budget with the 0% tax increase and a, not including North Albany rent and supplies in the 2019 budget?
Well, somebody needs to second it so we can vote on it.
I know, so I'm asking for a second, so,
If it doesn't get a second, then what happens? What's Robert's Rules of Order?
I don't have my book on me. I don't think the motion would be able to be voted on because it wouldn't,
I'll second it.
it wouldn't be seconded.
okay.
I want to
I'm willing
say
to
died,
second.
but something goes.
All right, so now we can have some more discussion.
I think it's important to talk about it.
Okay. So, so does anyone else have something to say now? I feel like I something I really want to say, but I want to make sure that everyone else has a
No,
chance.
I think it's irresponsible. I don't think we have the information, and I think we'll be attacked, and I'm not prepared to take that on right now. And you have the attention of your state legislators and your county legislators and your city legislators. They're all watching. So, let's do this right.
I agree with Alyssa.
So I think that I know this decision has been taking a long time. And I think that's the right way to have a conversation with the community. I think we've made a promise to the community that we were going to have these continuing conversations based on information that we have not yet gotten. Seems like we're making minor progress on that. And if we don't include it in the budget, I think we're undermining our credibility with our constituency and really going to destroy whatever trust that we had with that community. I really think that I realize we may make a certain decision and as the future happens. I don't know what's going to happen. We need to continue having these conversations. But I agree completely with Alyssa that if we're going to do this, we need to plan for it. And we don't want to surprise our community this way when we've promised to have conversations about it. And we've talked about this at board meetings. We talked about it, I can't remember what month it was, but at Pine Hills, we talked about a way forward. And we brought it up at the meeting last time. Concerns about the time it was taking were not raised by the finance committee or anyone else. So I really think it would be disingenuous of us to make that decision now. And it would just send a terrible message to the community. So that's where I stand on that. Anyone else?
I will say I appreciate Alyssa's recommendation to change the line to North Albany service instead of rent. I think that's something that allows us to keep the conversation open, and it allows us to just keep going without having to change course in the future potentially, and feel like we misled the community in any sort of manner. So I would certainly welcome a change in the name of the line to North Albany service while we're still trying to figure out how to best service the community. Because no matter if, I think we would all like to have a physical presence in the community, and I completely understand that, but I know personally, I do not love that space. It's one big room, programming is difficult. If there's a program, there's no quiet reading space. I think it's a very, very difficult location. So I definitely am looking forward to further discussion on how we best serve North Albany.
I'm going to vote against this also because if we put North Albany back into it, we put the 70,000 back, then our fund balance is way up over 400,000, and so that doesn't feel comfortable to me at all. And I don't feel like we can really reduce in this program area. We haven't added staff, so I would be looking for addressing the fund balance issue with a tax increase. So that's why I'd be voting against it.
I'll be voting against it as well. I think it's unfair.
Jen, did you raise your hand?
No, but I will. I feel like I'm no fan of closing branches, any branches of any library ever, but this feels to me like if it was carefully considered, and while I don't think this is the moment to do it, I think that the way the Finance Committee brought it up makes a very good point. And it feels to me like maybe it's what the people who have the clearest knowledge of programming and services there are advocating for, whether that's true or not. That's a feeling I'm getting. And while I don't think it would be popular with the community, I feel like it makes a lot of sense to change the way that we are currently representing ourselves in North Albany. And
So I just want to remind everybody that our decision about how we include it in the budget is not the decision about whether we close North Albany or not.
yes.
There's
And
two different things.
Okay, yeah. Oh, so talking about the budget decision, I think that what Sarah and Alyssa said is a wonderful sort of compromise. Change the way that we're representing it. Because it's not a closure. It's, let's revisit the way that we're funding North Albany.
Awesome.
I just have I worry about what our image will be to the community if we do go out for an ask while having this conversation about whether or not we continue to keep a physical building or in North Albany, or if this is not going to continue and we are going to close that physical space. What is that going to do to us if we go out and say we need a tax increase, and then make a decision whether it's in 6 months, in a year, and then say, sorry, but we're going to close your building.
But I, for one, would not agree to close that building without a distinct approach to servicing that community. And $70,000 is not gonna go very far. It's not, it's a salary, benefits, and maybe some programming money. I mean, $70,000 isn't a lot to run a library program. So I have no doubt, and knowing what the outreach department really wants to be doing, you know, the things that we've talked about, outreach to shut-ins and the elderly population and other places, the things we can't do with outreach because we don't have the resources. We don't have a full-time outreach, directs the outreach, but do we have somebody who goes running around all over the place, all the time?
Same person. So
No,
one,
actually going to places and providing services and delivering books?
oh no, we don't have.
No, so that's what I'm saying. I'm saying that we will we will figure out a very creative way. That's the exciting part of it, is that library services, library science has fantastic ways to figure out how to do library without a building. I mean, that's actually the, and you know what, it's gonna be more, I bet it's gonna be more than $70,000 to do what we're talking about.
Can I just speak to that a little bit, just to clarify some things? It's only $75,000 because we're not taking out the staffing component, which is an additional $150,000. So that's 2.5 extra bodies that we can bring either to branches or as part of an outreach program. Which, if we could have a 4-person, that would be 4 full bodies. Outreach department would be better than most public libraries.
And just as a new trustee, I want to clarify, it is not our task to decide what that programming is. It's simply our task to decide how we fund that region, right?
Well, no, I mean, we're in charge of facilities, you know, and that, we have some responsibility for that. We say what the program is, you know, how the stuff gets delivered,
And the hours.
and the hours and the expectations and the service components. If we say to them, you know, we want an outreach program, expand the outreach program, then they come up with that.
Okay.
The vehicle and the budget.
Right.
So I also want to add that I am strongly in favor of the 0% tax increase because of, Alston's point is well taken, but also because of how much we've grown our fund balance in the past couple of years, and how much we've outperformed our budget the past couple of years. So I only am familiar with the past year's budget because that's how long I've been on the board, but we've outperformed them. So last year was almost 600,000. The bond refinance was 200,000 of that. So we've outperformed our budget for 2 years in a row by $400,000, which is what, 5% of our budget. And I know there's lots of things, lots of reasons we go up and down, but that's a really big deal. And I worry about the message it sends to our voters when we are saying we need, you know, if we 1% increase, 1% increase is about $80,000. And so when we ask for that amount of increase and then don't spend it, and then some, I think that that's also a bad message to send.
So just to clarify, you're advocating for 0% and not changing what we represent North
Yep.
Albany.
And while I understand that point, since I'm also a 0% proponent, I feel like within the finance committee, this package deal was a compromise, because as Scott said, we wouldn't be removing the staffing balance. And I believe that you said 150,000 is equal to a 1.5% increase?
I think it's one.
It's 129.
But the percentage, it
So
would
the
be.
1.5% will give you 129,000.
Yeah, so by the North Albany closure and keeping the staff, even though we wouldn't be increasing the tax levy, it would be a net 1.5%. And that's, I think, part of the reason why we packaged the 0% with proposing to close the physical North Albany location, because it was felt that it was some sort of an increase, and so we came to that compromise within the committee.
Yeah, for me, every community deserves, every neighborhood in the city that has a branch library deserves to have the conversation about what they want that building to be, the staffing levels that are adequate, the services they want, not just North Albany. The only way to ensure that every library user in this city has a say over the future of the branch they use is to go out and allow them to vote on it. And the only way we do that is by proposing a budget that they get to vote on. So if we go out if we decide for a 0% increase, we don't go out at all. We withdraw the ability for every person in this city to decide what kind of library they want for the coming year. And the beautiful thing about the law is if we go out for an increase and it gets rejected, it's a 0% increase. It's a no harm, no foul situation, other than maybe, we get a little uncomfortable going out into the community, and when we have to say, the board voted to put out a budget that you get to vote on. I don't know. I got elected to this board to help make uncomfortable decisions, and I'm willing to own it. And I think Alyssa's number you know, North Albany, I think, would stand for more investment, not closing it, you know?
So we've got a motion on the floor. Can we get that decision done and then get something else on the floor? Because we really need to move that forward.
Okay. All in favor of the budget put forward by the finance committee? Sarah? Okay, opposed? So the finance committee's not voting? You need to vote. You have to vote.
We can abstain.
No. You can only abstain if there's a conflict of interest.
Oh, I was planning to abstain because I was confused and not sure what to do.
Okay,
You were
so
what?
I'm just not sure what to do. I feel like I'm conflicted.
Well,
that's not why you abstain.
if we can get this down, we can get something else on the table. If we can't vote this down, then we can't discuss any other options. So, is that correct?
Sarah's our Robert's rules person. I don't know, but I mean, I agree, let's deal with it.
How many no's did we have? We had majority no's.
But I just want, like, no, unless you have a conflict of interest, you shouldn't be abstaining. Abstaining is not for not wanting to make a decision. You have to decide yes or no.
Oh.
No,
That's
I'm
true,
not-
that's true.
I'm not sure about
I
that.
think we just have to have more
Where
no's
does
than
that
yeses.
come
So how many
or
no's
vice
did,
versa.
how many
So-
no's did we have?
5?
Five?
We had 5
That's
no's.
majority, that passes.
Yeah, we have 5 no's,
So
no yeses.
we're.
So
It
there we
goes
go.
down.
We need to,
You have to record your vote, so who is voting how? Can we go around the room and so I can make sure that I have it?
Okay, these are the
These are
no's.
no's.
All right, I'll vote no. Do you have to vote something?
How are you guys receiving? Sarah and Allison receiving? And Mike?
I don't understand, but okay. So can we get another proposal on the table? Are we ready for that? The finance committee want to take a crack at it, or are you just absolving yourselves of responsibility?
I think that's a little unfair.
Okay,
I think that you
Granted,
asked us
unfair.
to come with a proposal, which we sat for quite a long time to try and come up with one. And I respect that it's not the proposal that the Board of Trustees wanted, but we did come up with something.
okay.
yes, and I want to thank the finance committee. I know they had worked long and hard, and we did not give them very clear guidance at our last meeting. And so I thank you for the time that you spent in coming up and thoughtful proposal that you provided.
So I've heard from Karen, a 0%. I don't know if you want to do another straw poll, if you're thinking of taking this in pieces, or if somebody has a holistic budget proposal to make. I'm not sure how we want to do this next piece.
Do you have a suggestion?
I was just gonna say a 0% budget, putting back in all the lines that we took out for North Albany.
But calling North Albany Service not in?
I didn't care either way, truthfully, at this point. I mean, I'm okay with putting it as North Albany service area, if that,
I think that would be helpful in terms of communicating with the public. I agree with Sarah that we don't, and I know there are people who are going to look at our budget once it comes out, and indicating one thing or another, I think, is unfair.
I actually wanted to respond to Mike again, about the only way that people can tell us what they want is through the vote. And I agree with you that that's a very important way that people can tell us how they feel. But that is not the only way. I mean, we're seeing that in our conversation with North Albany, that we actually can get people out and tell us what they want, and we haven't been doing that in the rest of the city. Also, staff has booked how many community?
We're close, I think we're at 18 or 19 right now.
18 or 19, so, and I want all trustees to go to at least one, so that we are talking to the community regardless of whether we put an ask out. So, and we also, as trustees, elected trustees, have opportunities to be having conversations outside of those as well. So, anyway, I just want to say that. Yeah.
I, just for discussion purposes, I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion in a second, I'll make a comment first. I think as we continue to have these conversations with the community about the North Albany branch, given that I'm sure some folks will see the recommendation of the Finance Committee and what we voted on, there may still be a feeling of uncertainty as those conversations are ongoing. So I actually think this budget should increase the amount of money allocated for programming and services at the North Albany location. So as those conversations are ongoing, that community doesn't feel like we're just having those conversations as part of a process with a predetermined outcome in mind. Also, one of the other things we talked about was exploring 6-day service and addressing staffing levels at branches. And that would benefit all library users and every location. So I would like to make a motion that this year we go out for a 3% increase. And we increase the, pardon me, the materials and services line and programming line at the North Albany branch, as well as explore increased hours and increased days. But ultimately, I'd like to make a motion that we go out for a 3% increase.
Okay, is there a second for that?
I'll second that motion.
Okay. Let's discuss that.
I need you to say that one more time. I got the 3% increase.
Sure. So I think, you know, having had this discussion, I think it's probably important to invest in the North Albany branch as these conversations continue. And I think we should look at an expanded service hours and better, safer staffing levels at every branch. In addition to addressing some of the fund balance issues that exist regardless. And I think a 3% increase would allow us to both properly invest in the North Albany branch while those conversations are occurring, would allow APL to explore possibilities of expanding service hours, and start to address some of the staffing concerns that have been expressed.
I guess I wasn't clear. The specific numbers that you put back into the budget.
This would, yes, this is in addition to maintaining the lines for North Albany where they were. The estimated uses from previous documents, so.
So to put
So
paying
that's 70,000 back in, and that's about 168,000 of increased expenditures that you'd have to divide among the expense categories here.
So 168, so
186.
108, okay. So
That's 3%.
3% is 186, Mary?
No, 3% is 258,974. If you put back the 70,000, right?
70,000.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's
Right,
like
yeah.
$168,000.
Yeah.
okay.
$186,000.
That you're, Mike, suggesting we put into programs and services, materials and services?
Programs, services, materials, and any of the increase.
It would be an additional 188,574.
I don't think we need more material.
108,
He just said materials, so that's just reiterating what he said.
Melanie, can you say that, 188?
188,574.
3%.
That's 3%
Leftover
minus
after
the
the
70,400
That's right.
that we took out for the.
But then, are you putting all that money into cost lines? Because then you'd still need to have the same exact fund balance usage?
Right, so,
No, pardon me, I'm sorry.
go ahead.
Um,
What do you want to reduce fund balance by?
Yeah, that's the question.
I think all of this should go into the general library operations line.
So we're keeping the fund
So
balance
the fund
at
balance usage would still
358?
358, like what we proposed before.
Yes, I would
Yeah.
like to see,
So across the board, you have 188,000 to add to other lines. Yeah, that's what you're saying. Okay.
Any other discussion on that?
Are you open to friendly amendments?
absolutely.
How about we use some of that to reduce the fund balance, to reduce the
Fund balance usage.
fund balance usage? So use half of that for increased costs and half of it to reduce the fund balance.
I absolutely support that.
So
That would be
that's
94,287.
87 increased expenditures and 94,287 off of the fund balance.
Yeah.
Which would equal 264,206.
Does that add the North Albany?
Yes.
Yes.
But that doesn't, so when, that doesn't close the conversation about North Albany, though. Just-
No, it just puts money back
Just
in,
puts it-
Yeah.
and then we've got to make that decision somewhere down the line.
No.
But the decision of where the 94,287 goes, I guess we would ask you to make recommendations about programming or services.
Well, one of the things you also said was increased hours, and so that would be salaries, right? Salaries and benefits.
If there is one thing the public continues to ask for in all of the surveys, it's explore hours.
What's that?
Increase in hours in North Albany?
That's what I was asking.
The fund balance number?
I think investing in the North Albany location will allow us to better gauge what exactly that community wants from that space.
So when you said increase hours, you're speaking about North Albany?
I think we should, I would recommend that we study increasing hours system-wide, but specifically invest this enhanced revenue, a portion of it, into services, materials at the North Albany location.
I don't want to increase it, sorry.
What was the number? I was just trying to.
Sure,
The fund balance number.
264,
Yeah.
306.
206.
206.
I want to increase Harbor Hill where we know that people are looking for more hours.
Well, you know, if enhanced services means expanded hours by which someone can come and avail themselves of services, or enhanced staffing to deliver those services, then, you know, I'm viewing that as part of the,
Holistic.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, and,
All right.
and to that point, Jenna, that was kind of the track I was on as well in the whole North Albany conversation was, again, as much as we would love the location on every corner, I don't feel that location does anyone justice or provides enough space or services. I would rather look into expanding our at-home book delivery service and consider getting a shuttle, because instead of trying to get people into the North Albany location, the Arbor Hill location is beautiful. It has more space, it has study rooms, it has programs all the time. And even if, there is low usage and utilization rate at North Albany, maybe one or two people aren't enough for a book club, but maybe if they could get a ride, they could join a really robust book club in North Albany. And I think the programs there are really, really good.
Arbor
So,
Hill, yeah.
yes.
And let's remember that putting North Albany Services back in the budget does not mean we're making a decision about keeping it open. We're just
Yep.
putting it back in the budget, so we can continue to have those creative ideas and conversations with staff and community.
So are we moving on Mike's? No.
I have one more comment. For assessed value of my house, the difference between 0 and 3% is an additional $7.33.
Yeah. No, and I feel the same way.
$7.33.
But I think it's about what it seems like to the community if we're consistently going out. That doesn't, I'm not making a point either way, but I get the point that the finance committee was making about appearances.
I think that our staff has done an incredible job of prior to this administration, this library was seen as spending a lot of money. And this administration has turned that around and has been creative and really economical and smart and creative. And I think that there's going to be a time when we don't have a fund balance, and it's going to be soon. And I think we have to remind these voters every time that this is of value to them, and they have to vote on it. And I think if you're going to go out for anything, go out for something that, this doesn't even have teeth in it.
See, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but I feel like the city of Albany has a really long memory. I feel like we're still complaining about stuff Jennings did. And I feel like the mistakes that were made over a decade ago are something that people still talk about. And I'm just,
So your point is?
my point being that we have to be very careful about the way that we put tax levies out.
But, sorry for just jumping in here.
Who had their hand raised? Sarah, so just hold on.
Absolutely.
Go ahead, Sarah.
Okay. Yeah, to your point about running down the fund balance, I certainly don't want to see the fund balance run down or to have our organization get to that point where we're no longer financially healthy. I think we were more, like I said earlier, thinking of this as a pause button until we get all the facts from the facilities committee and we can really project out over the 5 years capital expenditures we're making, since we do have a really healthy, sizable overall fund balance right now. So I think hitting the pause button this year and then resuming discussions about future financial planning when we have all the facts is what I would be in support of.
My concern is that we have no control over what's happening in this state, in this country, and we are facing some really rocky times. If that Medicare stuff goes, the Medicaid stuff gets changed, we are in deep, deep trouble. The county's gonna collapse. So we are not gonna be able to go, I predict we're not gonna be able to go out for tax increases in future years. Because it's gonna get insane. So I think we do it while things are still okay. I think this community will support a tax increase. Next year, I'm not sure.
So the other thing that the finance committee considered was what the school district is going to do. And of course, we don't know, unless anybody else does know what the school district is going to do, but I know they're facing a significant deficit. Does anybody remember so the possibility that they're going to raise taxes is greater than, they haven't raised taxes in the past couple of years. And although we're completely different entities, we vote on the same day, everyone mixes it all up.
We're on the same bill.
We're on the same bill, we're on the same ballot,
Same ballot.
right? People don't, they see their taxes go up and they don't know who's raising their taxes. So can you talk a little bit more about your thinking there and?
I think just because it's on the same day, And if they're talking about having an increase, do we also want to go out for an increase and have voters feel double whammy that here we're getting school boards raising and we're asking for a raise, and we have gone out for 3 years for a budget increase. We've talked about putting a pause button on last year when we went out for an increase. Do we take a year off? So that was part of the thought process.
I'm also concerned that with the updated budget estimate, it has us in 2018 going into our fund balance by an estimated $44,000. I'm concerned that's low enough where we could turn another profit. So again, I think by hitting the pause button, I think our 2019 budget will be closer, hopefully. But I do think that we could stand to turn another profit in 2018, especially because we do have vacant positions right now that are unfilled, and that's money that's accruing every day that we're not spending in our operating budget. Yes.
Sure. I think the school board actually provides a good example of why we wouldn't want to defer. And I think our recent history, as Jenna mentioned, provides another good example of why we wouldn't want to defer. People are going to pay for these services now, or they're going to pay for them later, or not at all. These are not costs that the organization is going to be able to escape while still even just maintaining the current level of services. So, you know, I am cognizant of, you know, the impact on our budget process if the school board goes out and asks for a significant increase, but I am confident that the voters are able to distinguish between these two entities, the services that are provided. And I think there's a real clear delineation between library taxes and school taxes and general, you know, taxes, property taxes. You know, this is a service that people get to vote directly on and connect directly with, rather than just get a tax bill in the mail and have no say over what kind of services a municipal government might provide, the adequacy of, you know, buildings, operations, staffing levels in the school district. I think there's a very core and close connection here between local voters and the library and the services they're willing to pay for. I think local recent results have borne that out. And I would echo Alyssa's decision or point that, you know, simply kicking the can down the road doesn't, I think, reflect what the city wants, and it doesn't, you know, reflect the talent that we have in the organization, I think. So I think, you know, a 3% increase is modest. It's a $7 increase for someone with an assessed value of $150,000 on their home. And for that $7, we get to invest in every branch in this city. Or people can say they don't want to pay the extra $7 and they vote the budget down, and we get the 0% increase anyway.
Can we move on that? Sorry.
So we're talking about $94,287, correct? That we're putting into programming, services, increasing hours, whatever that should be. Am I correct in that figure?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So Scott, could you comment about what that number could provide in terms of hours or increased days for all the branches?
So we were in a model, so we've had this discussion even without a budget increase, where we're seeing an additional morning at Pine Hills, an additional morning at Howe, and then if there's one decision I've made here that I regret, it's closing at 8. So what I would like to see is having all the branches open till 9 o'clock. That's really, and probably doing Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday
Sunday.
evenings.
Sunday morning.
And then the other thing that we've been discussing for some time now is moving towards a model where we're open Sundays, instead of here, open Sundays at Delaware and open Sundays at Arbor Hill.
Teddy cried on Sunday.
Okay.
So
My question is,
yeah, go ahead.
sorry, this $94,287, is that enough money to provide the model that you are stating?
Yeah. What we could do is we could hire some additional part-time clerks to work in the evening. That would cover a lot of the evening hours. And then the rest I would say put in programming. If you look at where we're growing, it's in programming. And if you look at the national trends and what libraries are doing, they're hiring authors to come in and do book talks. They're hiring bands to come in and do performances. We've never done that because, to be honest, when I started, our program budget was minimal. So those things are all possible and challenges that we can definitely meet. But again, it'll be an increase, and where it'll be an increase is staffing. Because if you're gonna have branches open later and on additional days, then it's gonna be open. We need more bodies. And we need more part-time bodies, which right now is not easy to get. So that's where the real difficulty will be. Isn't paying for those positions, it's finding people to work in those positions.
We lose one of those every 6 months at Skidmore.
Yeah. 4% unemployment in this area.
So I just want to say that last year we had a long discussion about the budget, and we decided to raise the taxes a little bit and then reinvest in the library by adding 6 positions. And we are getting 1.5 new ones.
Yeah.
Right.
Close
Yeah.
to.
Right. So that concerns me. When we've said we want to invest in positions, we're not, it's not happening. And then we're adding to our fund balance when we're requesting positions to be added. So I really feel strongly that because we have been underspending by so much, that I really don't feel comfortable asking for tax increase for that reason. And I understand that we don't know what's gonna happen in the future. I understand that, sometimes we've gotten lucky in the past few years with the retirement and a few other things that's contributed to it. But we have seriously underspent our budget, significantly underspent our budget by much more than the tax increases we've been asking for. So I just think if people were paying attention, watching this video, they'd be rightly upset with us for doing that. People in the city, we pay a lot of taxes. I think taxes are the price of civilization, and I'm happy to pay them, but not everybody is in that position where, $7 isn't a lot for you, me, but there's a lot of people that it is a lot for. And if we can't spend the money that we're asking for, then why are we asking for the money?
I would contend that those are the people that most need library services and would be happiest to pay the extra $7 and most deserve more investment in the library.
Any other thoughts on that? I mean, I know that when Scott went out last year to talk about the budget, he got different perspectives from different neighborhoods.
Brenda helped me from getting torn apart. And it was surprising neighborhoods. I didn't expect that in Arbor Hill. building and a great service that many people tell me they love, but they're concerned your neighborhood association wears taxes. And it became an interesting conversation that sticks with me because of some of the things that people said.
If you show up again and they realize that you asked for money that you didn't spend, it'd be a hell of a conversation again.
Yes.
So, to Karen's point.
So let's make sure we spend every single dollar this 3% brings. I just think it's right for the community to be able to weigh in. And I think it's right to not only invest in every branch and the services the city provides, but invest in the talent that we have amassed here system-wide. It wasn't always like this. And I think we should be grateful for all of these things coming together and letting the community decide if this is worth investing in. The thought of stifling that conversation in this room is tough for me.
Can we call for the vote, because we may have to come up with another
Right,
plan?
yes, I was going to just ask if anybody else that hasn't spoken yet wanted to say anything about this before we vote. Okay, so, motion on the table that was proposed by Mike, seconded and amended by Alyssa, would be a 3% increase with $70,400 to North Albany Services line, an additional $94,287 for materials and possible staffing, and then $94,287,000 off of the fund balance, which would leave the 2019 fund balance use projected to be $264,206. Okay. All in favor? Okay. Opposed? All right, well, that passed.
I was like,
We back, we pass muffins. There we go.
I think we go for a drink.
Well, I'm proud of the amount of work this group has put into this. I don't want to lose the fact that though this is the most painful time for the staff and I, because it's the most contentious, it's always impressive to see the amount of time that everybody at this table volunteers to put in. So it is deeply appreciated.
Before we leave, I want to publicly apologize to Allison. That was inappropriate for me to be obnoxious, and it's not fair, so I'm sorry.
Oh. Let's adjourn.
What? That's on the record. Let it be on the record.
So, motion to adjourn.
I would move to adjourn.
Second, all right, all in favor?